The Galactic Council chamber had never been so quiet. Representatives of 27 species sat in a crescent of holographic thrones, their displays flickering with casualty numbers and collapsing star systems. The Kravik Swarm, a hive mind plague born from the void between galaxies, had consumed 14 systems in half a cycle. The death toll had surpassed anything recorded in galactic history. And now, after all their weapons and strategies had failed, they were debating a decision every member feared to speak aloud. High Chancellor Velitha's bioluminescent skin pulsed with anxious colors. We should not summon humanity, he said, voice trembling. They are violent, unpredictable, and their history shows. We're out of time. Ambassador Rathanes' crystalline form chimed with urgency. Our fleets cannot slow the swarm. Our worlds cannot sustain more refugees. If we do nothing, the Kravik will devour us all. Every species represented here. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Fear, resentment, shame. Because they all knew the same truth. The humans were terrifying. They had evolved on a death world where nearly everything was lethal. They adapted too fast, pushed too hard, and fought wars with a creativity the civilized galaxy found almost grotesque. To invite humans into the war wasn't a partnership. It was unleashing a controlled catastrophe. But extinction had a way of making even nightmares seem like salvation. After hours of bitter arguing, 12 species abstained, 9 objected, and 6 reluctantly approved. The decision was made. The distress beacon was sent toward the Sol system. Days later, an Earth warship arrived, a dark angular vessel bristling with weapons the Council didn't have names for. From its ramp stepped a single human. Not the battalion they expected, not the armored legion they feared. Just one woman. Captain Maya Torres. She scanned the Council chamber, unbothered by the horrified stares. Then she slung her rifle over her shoulder with casual confidence. Not arrogance, just someone who knew exactly what she was capable of. So, she said, smirking, I hear you've got a bug problem. The Council members stiffened. Some recoiled. A few quietly panicked. Humans were supposed to be too fragile, too reckless, too volatile for galactic warfare. But in that moment, as Maya Torres smiled like she'd been waiting her whole life for this kind of fight, every alien present felt a cold realization. They hadn't summoned a soldier. They had summoned a storm. Captain Maya Torres walked through the Council chamber as though she owned it, boots echoing on the polished obsidian floor. Her armor wasn't ceremonial like the Council's peacekeeping officers. It was rugged, scorched, repaired more times than it had been replaced. A veteran's armor. A survivor's armor. The counselors watched her like she was a live explosive. She paused at the hollow display, projecting the Kravik Swarm's advance. Red tendrils stretching across star maps, engulfing entire constellations. She studied it, eyes narrowing with a kind of calm calculation none of the aliens recognized. 14 systems in under 8 months, she muttered. That's not expansion. That's extermination tactics. Chancellor Velith swallowed. Yes, Captain. That is why we requested your assistance. Requested? Maya arched a brow. Your distress beacon practically screamed. Send your worst nightmare. A few counselors winced at her choice of words. They weren't fond of being reminded that humanity's reputation was more monster than ally. Ambassador Rathan gathered enough courage to speak. We were told humans have alternative methods of warfare. Ways of fighting the swarm we have not considered. Maya didn't smile. She simply lifted her rifle and placed it gently on the council table. The weapon hummed. An unnerving sound none of the aliens recognized. You want alternative? She said softly. You're looking at it. Whispers filled the chamber. A Draxian general bristled his spines. A Elathi diplomat shielded their sensitive gills from the trace radiation bleeding off Maya's weapon. Captain Torres, Velith said cautiously. Our fleets rely on defensive measures and containment strategies. We avoid biological weapons, planet-cracking munitions, or... Maya cut him off. Yeah, I read your laws. Every single restriction. every outdated rule written to make your citizens feel safe. She tapped the holographic swarm cluster. The Kravik don't care about your rules. Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. Maya leaned back, eyes cold and clinical. You called us because humans don't just win wars. We end them. Permanently. Even the council guards shifted uneasily. Most species couldn't imagine ending anything the way humans defined it. One counselor finally blurted the question they all feared to ask. What exactly do you intend to do? Maya's smirk returned, sharper this time. We're done playing defense. We take the fight to the swarm. We burn their hives, flash their nurseries, and collapse their feeding worlds. You don't stop predators by hiding behind shields. You stop them by proving something bigger and meaner hunts back. Shock rippled through the chamber. Some recoiled. Others stared at her with horrified fascination. Because for the first time since the swarm appeared, someone had spoken a plan that sounded like survival. Maya picked up her rifle and slung it over her shoulder with smooth efficiency. Prep your fleets, she said. I'll show you how humans wage war. No one dared to argue. No one dared to breathe. They had unleashed humanity, and humanity had arrived hungry. The Council escort fleet formed a shimmering corridor of ships around Maya's vessel, the Eclipse Lance, as they approached the Threxian line, the final defensive border before swarm territory. Even from a distance, the battlefield was visible as a faint red haze, like a bruise spreading across the void. Kravik spores drifted like drifting embers across space, multiplying and splitting, devouring whatever they touched. The remains of a dozen alien ships floated silently, hulls partially dissolved by acid filaments. For the aliens, this scene was a nightmare. For Maya, it was reconnaissance. Her voice crackled over the command channel, smooth and unfazed. All right, counselors, you wanted to see how humans handle extinction-level threats. Keep your distance and watch. On the observation deck of their capital ship, the council representatives leaned forward anxiously. Ambassador Rathanes' crystals dimmed in fear. This is only a scouting hive. Our fleets avoid direct contact unless... Maya cut the transmission. She didn't need a lecture. The Eclipse Lance powered forward, engines roaring with a sound the aliens had never heard in space, like thunder. Human engineering always found a way to be loud. Sensors beeped. Dozens of Kravik vessels, living, chitin-coated organisms, peeled away from the swarm cloud and surged toward her ship. A typical species would retreat, or form a defensive line, or prey. Maya did none of the above. Time to clip the hive. She armed a weapon none of the council fleets possessed, a thermobaric vacuum mine, illegal in half the galaxy and banned outright by the other half. A weapon designed for one purpose: obliteration through oxygen starvation detonation. She deployed it calmly. One mine. Just one. The counselors gasped as it drifted silently into the path of the charging swarm vessels. Then, a flash, but not the bright white fire of standard detonation. It was a dark implosion, a crushing collapse that formed a blooming sphere of superheated vacuum. Every Kravik ship within its reach shriveled inward, chitin cracking, wings folding like burning paper. The creatures died without sound, without warning, wiped out in an instant by a weapon the galaxy had outlawed millennia ago. Gasps filled the council chamber as they watched through holographic relay. Even hardened generals recoiled. What kind of technology is that? One whispered. Maya's voice came through the comm with casual boredom. Old Earth tech. Outdated, honestly, but perfect for bugs. More Kravik vessels approached. Larger ones now, spined and bristling, prepared to adapt. The swarm shifted formations, weaving defensive nets to trap the human ship. Maya didn't flinch. She loaded the next weapon, a biological counteragent the council had never approved. Let's see if your hive likes indigestion. She fired a warhead containing a tailored enzyme, something cooked in a human lab to dissolve Kravik digestive sacs instantly. The moment it struck, the swarm faltered. Ships spasmed. Organisms ruptured. The entire formation convulsed as though poisoned. The The counselors stared in horrified awe. The humans weren't fighting the swarm. They were dismantling it. In 2 minutes, the scouting hive was gone, reduced to drifting ash. Maya leaned back in her command chair. "Counselors," she radioed. "That was a small one. A nibble." She cracked her knuckles. "Now, let's go find their main course." The council chamber erupted the moment Maya's transmission ended. The display still showed the dissolving remnants of the Kravik scouting hive, organic debris scattering across the void like burnt leaves. Some counselors shouted in fear. Others whispered in stunned admiration. A few sat paralyzed, realizing too late what they had unleashed. She used bioweapons. One delegate shrieked. "And vacuum mines, the type outlawed after the Tethian collapse," exclaimed another. But beneath all the outrage was a trembling thread of hope. Human weapons, primitive, brutal, horrifying, had worked. High Chancellor Velith tried to maintain order. "Captain Torres, your display of force was effective. But the Council has strict limits on what?" Maya appeared on the holographic feed, raising a hand lightly. "Limits don't win extinction wars," she said. "Only victory does." The chamber quieted instantly. Her voice carried a conviction that cut deeper than any threat. Rathan stepped forward. "Captain, if these are merely your preliminary tactics, what is your actual plan?" Maya tapped a button. A hologram appeared, a rotating model of the Kravik's core territory. 6 hive worlds, interconnected biomass tunnels, breeding moons, and resin fortresses. "Our intel says their species grows from a central queen complex." She enlarged a pulsing sphere at the center. "The Nexus hive. Kill that, and the whole swarm collapses." The aliens recoiled. "That is suicide," the Draxian general said sharply. "We have thrown fleets at that region. The Kravik density is beyond measurable limits." "Exactly," Maya replied. "You threw fleets." She zoomed in further. "I'm throwing extinction. Silence. Corrosive, heavy silence." What does that mean?" asked Velith hesitantly. Maya took a breath. "Humans specialize in asymmetric warfare. You think in terms of ships and shields. We think in terms of ends and outcomes." She highlighted 3 zones on the map. "These are their breeding moons. You're trying to destroy the swarm while they replace losses faster than you can fire shots. You're fighting the symptoms." Her finger traced a line to the Nexus hive. "I'm taking out the disease." Counselors exchanged horrified glances. "Captain Torres," Rathan said slowly, "the Nexus hive is surrounded by billions of Kravik organisms. Only a full-scale crusade could reach it." Maya smirked. "I don't need to fight my way in." She switched the display to a microscopic diagram, a viral agent spiraling with terrifying elegance. "I'm going to infect it." A collective gasp filled the room. The Elathi diplomat nearly fainted. "You propose to release a pathogen across 6 inhabited systems? The ecological consequences." "This pathogen only targets Kravik biology," Maya explained calmly. "It does one thing, liquefies their neural cores, leaves everything else unharmed." "Captain, that is genocide." "No," Maya corrected. "That is pest control." Shock, anger, disbelief. And beneath it all, the first spark of possible victory the Council had felt in months. Maya ended the briefing with a final statement. "You brought humans into this war because you were desperate. Desperation has consequences. Let me do what we do best." She leaned forward, eyes cold with resolve. "Let me end your nightmare." The Council adjourned in uneasy silence, but Maya stayed behind, staring at the holographic projection of the Kravik Nexus hive. Its pulsing glow reflected in her eyes like a personal demon she'd been hunting for years. She didn't notice when Rathan approached, their crystalline steps soft against the chamber floor. "Captain Torres," the ambassador said gently, "your proposals? They carry a level of ruthlessness we did not expect." Maya didn't turn. "Then you don't know humans very well." Rathan hesitated. "We know of humanity's wars. But you, specifically you, fight like someone who has already lost something." A long silence followed. Maya exhaled slowly. "My colony was one of the first hit." Rathan stiffened. You encountered the swarm before the council did. Not the swarm, Maya said. Something like it. Smaller hive. Earlier strain. She paused, jaw tightening. They hit Santos 3. We were a mining colony. Small, isolated, easy prey. Rathan listened, motionless, sensing that she rarely shared this with anyone. I was planet-side when they arrived. They came like a tide, wave after wave, tearing everything apart. Maya's eyes hardened. We tried to evacuate. Couldn't save everyone. Her voice faltered only once. I was one of the last out. My brother wasn't. The ambassador's crystals dimmed with sympathy. I am deeply sorry. Maya nodded once, barely. After that, Earth Command built a division dedicated to hive species warfare. I volunteered for every mission. Every planet we saved felt like reclaiming Santos 3. Rathan's tone grew softer. This war is personal to you. No, Maya looked at the hologram again. This war is inevitable. Humans didn't evolve teeth and fire because we were cruel. We evolved them because everything around us tried to kill us. And we learned one truth. Her voice dropped into a cold whisper. If something wants to wipe you out, you hit back harder. Rathan shivered. Because from Maya's perspective, ending the Kravik wasn't brutality. It was survival. The ambassador studied her face, tired, scarred, determined. You know, Rathan said gently, the council fears what humans might become. Maya finally looked at them. You invited us because you feared something worse. Rathan nodded slowly. Yes, the Kravik. Then let me deal with them. She picked up her rifle and slung it over her shoulder. Her grief was no longer a wound. It was fuel, a purpose sharpened into a weapon. Rathan watched her leave, realizing something the council had overlooked. Humanity didn't fight because they enjoyed war. They fought because they carried their dead with them and refused to let anyone else join them. The Kravik did not wait. They never did. Before Maya could prepare her strike teams, alarms rippled across the Threxian line. Council fleet sensors lit up with crimson warnings. Thousands of signatures emerging from slip space, ruptures like a blossoming wound in the void. The swarm was coming, not in scouting numbers, not probing or testing. This was an assault. Maya stepped onto the Eclipse Lance's bridge as the forward observation screens displayed a sight no alien had ever seen and survived to describe. A living armada, organic leviathans stretching across the darkness, wings shimmering with bioelectric pulses, tendrils trailing behind them like gravitational storms. To most, it looked like death incarnate. To Maya, it looked like an opportunity. Captain, her helmsman reported, council fleets are forming their usual defensive phalanx. Maya shook her head. Tell them to break formation. The command relay officer hesitated. They won't listen. Defensive tactics are outdated. Maya snapped. That formation works against sentient strategists, not hive instincts. The Kravik will swarm the center, overload shields, and cascade collapse your entire fleet. She strode to the comms console and opened a channel to all council ships. Fleet commanders, this is Captain Maya Torres of Earth Command. Break your lines now. Scatter into attack clusters. The response was immediate and panicked. We cannot scatter. Our doctrines rely on shield overlap. You propose chaos during an enemy charge. That is suicide. Maya turned to her weapons officer. Arm the Nova charges. The aliens on the bridge froze. Even her own human crew went silent. Nova charges were a forbidden weapon. Microsingularity implosions capable of wiping out entire flotillas. They weren't precision tools. They were black hole grenades. Captain, her XO whispered, if we detonate them near council vessels. We won't. Maya pointed at the swarm. The Kravik will. The crew stared in confusion, but obeyed. Out in the void, the swarm tightened its formation, preparing the infamous Kravik spiral, a maneuver where the creatures formed a vortex of bodies, compressing their prey with overwhelming mass and kinetic force. Maya watched the pattern develop like a chess player anticipating a fatal mistake. Wait for it. The spiral tightened. Kravik vessels screamed through space, wings vibrating violently. Now! She fired the Nova charges directly into the forming vortex, then powered the Eclipse Lance into a hard burn away from the battlefield. The charges detonated, but not in a controlled burst. They collapsed inward, forming a micro black hole implosion that sucked the entire center of the spiral into a crushing singularity. The swarm's own tightening maneuver sealed their fate. Billions of tons of organic mass compressed in seconds before the singularity evaporated with a thunderous shockwave. Council fleets watched in stunned silence. One maneuver, one gambit. The swarm's first strike had been reduced to drifting ash and silent fragments. Maya lowered her rifle with a satisfied exhale. "That," she said calmly, "is what happens when you fight humans using predictable behavior." Council Command didn't know whether to cheer or fear her more than ever. In the aftermath of the implosion, the battlefield drifted in unnatural quiet. The space where the Kravik spiral had formed now shimmered with gravitational scars, ripples of distorted starlight trembling like bruises in the void. The Council ships did not move at first. They simply stared. To them, the destruction of an entire swarm cluster should have taken a full armada, dozens of casualties, and hours of attrition. Maya had accomplished it with 3 charges and a good understanding of hive instinct. The silence broke when the Threxian admiral appeared on Maya's hollow display. His mandibles quivered, not with anger, but with fear. "Human captain," his voice rattled, "you wield weapons forbidden in every civilized region of space. What you just unleashed. No species should be capable of such devastation." Maya didn't look away. "Your civilization was dying. I don't fight to impress committees. I fight to win." Behind her, the Eclipse Lance crew stood still, waiting for the Admiral's response. Humans were used to this reaction. Every alien species that ever fought beside them eventually realized one truth. Humans did not escalate to match the enemy. They escalated to end the enemy. The Admiral shuddered. "You ended a 1,000-year doctrine in a single strike. You ended laws." "No," Maya corrected. "I ended an ambush." But the Admiral wasn't reassured. He lowered his voice. "The Council fears the Kravik, but they fear you more now. They're already whispering about containment protocols." Containment. The word was an old one, meaning restrictions, surveillance, forced compliance. Humanity had heard it before, and humanity had ignored it before. Maya folded her arms. If the Council wants discipline, they can have results. I was asked to stop a galactic extinction. I'm doing exactly that. The Admiral hesitated, mandibles tapping nervously. There are rumors among the delegates that humans enjoy war. Maya smirked faintly. Enjoy it? No, but we're very, very good at surviving it. Before the Admiral could respond, a young Threxian officer approached from off-screen, frills quivering with urgency. "Prime Admiral, sensors detect movement at the outer rim of the Kavar expanse. Multiple biosignatures, much larger than the previous swarm." Maya stepped closer to the display. "How large?" The officer swallowed hard. "Large enough that your Nova charges may not be sufficient." For the first time, the Admiral's fear shifted into desperation. "Human Captain, if you have more weapons like the one you used today, the Council demands you deploy them immediately. We cannot withstand a second wave of that magnitude." Maya's eyes narrowed. There it was, the shift she'd been waiting for. A few minutes ago, the Council had feared humanity. Now they needed humanity, and need always outweighed fear. "Admiral," she said, "I have more than weapons. I have a strategy, but it requires access to your information vaults and full command authority for coalition forces." The Admiral froze. This is unprecedented. "So, is extinction?" The hollow flickered as he considered her words. Finally, slowly, he bowed his head. "You will have what you ask for, Captain Torres." Maya nodded once. "Good. Then we begin Phase 2. Behind her, the bridge lights dimmed as tactical displays flared to life. If the aliens thought they'd already seen humanity at its most terrifying, they were wrong. Phase 2 began the same way all human war plans began, by studying the enemy until every weakness became a weapon. Maya stood before a massive holographic display in the Council's war chamber. Around her, towering alien delegates whispered uneasily as the human captain manipulated data with swift, confident motions. The Kravik Swarm pulsed across the hologram like a living storm. Tens of thousands of drones arranged in fractal layers, designed to overwhelm anything in their path. To the Council, it looked invincible. To Maya, it looked predictable. The Kravik aren't intelligent, she explained. They're instinctive. They react, they repeat patterns, they overcommit. Which means one thing. She zoomed in on an area of the galactic map. We can make them chase something. The Vadran Chancellor recoiled. You propose baiting them? The swarm does not pursue decoys. They consume until no life remains. Exactly. Maya magnified a star system near the expanse. They'll pursue this because it's real. A target they cannot ignore. Gasps rippled across the chamber. That is a populated world, the Chancellor shouted. We cannot sacrifice it. Who said anything about sacrificing it? Maya's voice cut sharply through the rising panic. We evacuate it, hide the civilians behind our defensive line, and turn the planet into the deadliest trap the Kravik have ever seen. Horrified murmurs spread. Alien leaders stared at her as if she'd proposed detonating her own lungs. The Threxian admiral whispered, Humans, you turn entire worlds into weapons. When necessary, Maya didn't flinch. Your strategy so far has been to defend and prey. Mine is to lure and obliterate. She tapped several points on the map, marking positions in a tight crescent around the chosen world. Phase 2 relies on layered ambush points, overlapping kill spheres, gravitational well distortions, and misdirection fields. Humans call it a meat grinder. You would call it a violation of 12 war treaties. The room froze. A soft, horrified voice rose from the back. Captain, how many council laws will this operation break? Maya considered the question. Her answer was calm, even gentle. All of them. A collective shiver passed through the delegates. But it wasn't fear of Maya this time. It was awe, because for the first time in centuries, they were hearing a plan that might actually work. Maya continued. The Kravik feed on biomass. They take the fastest path to it. If we give them a world dripping with false biological signatures, they won't hesitate. They'll dive in with every tendril they've got. And then, the Admiral asked quietly. Maya zoomed in on the planet, revealing subterranean tunnels, explosive nodes, and energy conduits woven like veins. Then we collapsed the mantle. The room erupted into pandemonium. Shouting, screeching, arguments in 12 languages. Maya let it swirl for a moment before raising her voice. You asked humanity for help. This is how we help. Silence hit the chamber like a detonated EMP. We don't play fair. We don't play nice. We play to survive. She stepped back from the display. And if you want to survive too, you'll follow my orders. The Admiral's gaze hardened into resolve. I'm with the human. One by one, other delegates reluctantly nodded, because deep down, they knew the truth. Maya's ruthlessness wasn't a flaw. It was exactly what the galaxy needed. The planet chosen for the operation was Yura 7, a medium-gravity, forest-rich world with 3 moons and enough biomass to make the Kravik salivate across half a sector. The Council had designated it a green world, meaning untouched by industrial development, cherished for its ecosystems and biodiversity. Maya saw something different. She saw an anvil, and humanity would swing the hammer. Evacuation began within hours. Massive council carriers swept over continents, pulling every living being into orbit, citizens, wildlife, even microbial samples for later repopulation. Many species struggled to understand why this was necessary, but the answer was always the same. We aren't abandoning the world, Maya told them. We're weaponizing it. Once the last civilian ship cleared atmosphere, Maya gave the signal. Human engineers, brought in secretly aboard the Eclipse Lance, descended to the surface with specialized burrowing vehicles and enough explosives to make entire tectonic plates nervous. They moved like a colony of ants with nuclear toys, carving tunnels beneath forests and oceans alike. The aliens watched from orbit in horror. "You're hollowing out the planet," a Vadran observer whispered. "Not hollowing," Maya corrected. "Strengthening. We're giving it structure so it collapses exactly the way we want." Explosive nodes were placed beneath mountain ranges. Thermal conduits threaded through fault lines. Energy relays coiled under seabeds. And at the planet's core, a massive fusion seed the size of a cargo shuttle sat waiting. Silent, patient, monstrous. The Council called it madness. Humans called it engineering. But the megastructure wasn't enough. They needed bait. Maya's biotechs worked for days releasing synthesized pheromone clouds. Chemical signatures that mimic terrified prey animals, wounded life forms, and fertile biomass. The scents drifted through the atmosphere like invisible smoke. To the Kravik, it would be irresistible. By the time the trap was ready, Ura 7 looked unchanged from orbit. Emerald continents, shimmering seas, quiet clouds. But beneath the surface, it was a bomb disguised as paradise. "Status?" Maya asked. Colonel Harker, one of humanity's best combat engineers, saluted. "All nodes synced. The core seed is armed. Collapse timing at your discretion." The Threxian admiral approached, uneasy. "If this fails, we lose a world for nothing." Maya shook her head. "If this fails, we lose the galaxy. The world is the least of our problems." Sensors pinged. A cold tremor moved through the command deck. Incoming signals. Thousands of Kravik, then tens of thousands, then more, stretching in a writhing ribbon that blotted out long-range scans. "They took the bait," an officer whispered. The swarm descended like a nightmarish eclipse, tendrils spreading as they enveloped the planet. They didn't hesitate. They didn't question. They hungered. As the Kravik began to drill through the forests and oceans, tearing the planet apart to reach the biomass they sensed, Maya watched calmly. "Let them dig deep," she murmured. "We want them all the way inside." The trap had closed. Now it was only a matter of time. The Kravik dug deeper, and deeper, and deeper still. The calm phase always came first, right before a planet died. Sensors dimmed, seismic readings steadied, and every creature in the vicinity seemed to hold its breath. Even from orbit, the stillness felt wrong. Artificial, like the galaxy bracing itself. On the command deck of the Eclipse Lance, the lights dimmed to combat blue. Tactical displays showed the swarm flooding Ura 7's surface like a living oil slick, tunneling with frantic hunger toward the planet's core. Maya watched the data streams with an expression carved from stone. "Depth?" she asked. "Primary clusters have reached tunnel layer 5, Colonel Harker replied. "Estimated 30 minutes until they breach the mantle." Around them, the council delegates stood in a tense semicircle. Some wrung their hands. Some clicked mandibles or twitched frills. A few prayed, soft chittering or harmonic hums that seemed painfully fragile in the steel warship. "You still have time to abort," the Vadran Chancellor whispered. "We could retreat, fall back to the inner systems, perhaps negotiate." Maya turned her head slowly. "You cannot negotiate with something that reproduces by eating you." Her voice was quiet, but sharp as a blade. "You tried diplomacy for 1,000 years. This is why you're down to your last 22 functioning fleets." The Chancellor fell silent. Harker leaned closer. "They're accelerating. Swarm density inside Tunnel Layer 6 now exceeds projections." "Of course it does," Maya murmured. "They smell a feast." A tremor shook the Eclipse Lance. The shockwave of a Kravik drilling tendril striking a fault line with enormous force. The planet below quivered like an animal in pain. The Admiral hissed. "They are killing the world already." "That's the point," Maya replied. "The more they destabilize the crust, the more energy we get when this goes off." A Vadran scientist stared wide-eyed. "You speak as if detonating a planet is routine." Maya didn't blink. "You've never watched humans build a starship engine from scratch during a siege. Trust me, this is tame." Another tremor, more violent. A seismic bloom spread across the hologram. "They're close," Harker said. minutes away from reaching the core seed. The air pressure on the bridge seemed to tighten. Every alien present felt it, the shift, the dread, the sense that they stood on the edge of a decision that would echo through history. The Admiral looked to Maya, voice trembling despite himself. If we do this, if you destroy this world with a swarm inside, there is no turning back. The galaxy will never forget. The Council may never forgive. Maya exhaled slowly. Admiral, she said, I'm not here for forgiveness. I'm here to make sure you still have a galaxy to live in. Silence. A final alarm rang out. Sharp, urgent, metallic. Captain, Harker barked. Kravik drones have breached the final layer. They're entering the core chamber. The bridge froze. Every eye turned to Maya. It's time, she said. Seal all escape vectors, lock the grid, and arm the mantle collapse sequence. Harker's hands flew over the controls. Ready on your mark. Maya stepped forward, resting her palm on the activation console. The delegates stared, breaths held, bodies tense, hearts pounding. The fate of a world, and possibly the war, balanced on a single human gesture. Maya whispered, "Say goodbye to Yura, 7." Her hand descended, and everything changed. The mantle collapse sequence activated. From orbit, the world shuddered violently. A low, resonant rumble spread through space like a groan from some ancient beast. Energy conduits beneath the surface ignited, sending shock waves through tectonic plates and subterranean tunnels, precisely where the Kravik had burrowed. The swarm reacted instinctively, thrashing in chaotic panic. Tendrils collided. Hive ships buckled. Organic vessels ruptured as the collapsing crust compressed their chitinous frames. Their hive instincts were their undoing. They sought escape through paths Maya had already sealed, forcing them deeper into lethal traps. Council fleets watched in horrified awe. Sensors could barely keep up with the scale of destruction. Every reading spiked simultaneously. Gravity anomalies, energy surges, and sudden microquakes rocked the orbital perimeter. Maya stood at the command console, her calm composure unwavering. "They're smart," she muttered, "but not smart enough." The first biomass cluster breached the final containment tunnel. It exploded from interior pressure, fracturing into a storm of fragments. A chain reaction followed instantly, detonating nodes, rupturing magma channels, and compressing the central fusion seed. The Kravik screamed. Not a sound the Council could comprehend, but the monitors registered neural collapse on a scale never seen before. Entire swarms of organisms failed simultaneously as their nervous systems were destroyed chemically and mechanically. In less than 10 minutes, the Nexus Hive, millions of lives, countless ships, every bioorganic construct was gone, reduced to ash, drifting debris, and a void of silence that stretched across orbit. Even the Council, normally reserved and clinical, did not move. Some wept, some bowed, some simply stared, unable to speak. Maya exhaled and slung her rifle casually over her shoulder. Her crew mirrored her composure, bloodless, efficient, unshakable. Humanity had just demonstrated a truth no alien could ignore. When humans decided a threat had to be ended, it ended. The Admiral cleared his throat. "Captain Torres, you have done what none of us thought possible. You have destroyed the Kravik Nexus Hive. The galaxy..." He paused, voice barely steady. "The galaxy owes you a debt we cannot calculate." Maya smirked faintly. "The galaxy owes itself," she said. "We just made sure it survives." Rathan approached the console, voice trembling. "You humans, you are terrifying." "I know," Maya replied, "but so is survival." Behind her, the Council's fleets regrouped. They had witnessed a force no convention, law, or tradition could tame. They had seen what a human mind, a human hand, and a human will could accomplish when applied without hesitation. For the first time, the galaxy understood. Humans weren't just warriors. They were apex predators, engineers of extinction when necessary, architects of survival. And Captain Maya Torres, standing tall among the stars, had just rewritten the definition of human capability for every species watching. The galaxy would never forget her, or the lesson humanity had delivered. Silence. Then, slowly grudging awe, and finally respect. Maya turned to her crew, voice soft but firm. Let's go home. The swarm is dead. For now, that's enough. Even in victory, her eyes scanned the void. Because a human soldier never stops watching, and the galaxy had only begun to understand what humans were capable of.